Well, for more on all we've been saying, I'm now being joined from Kaduna by Professor Ango Abdullahi. Specifically, he's joining us from Zaria. He's the convener of the Northern Elders Forum. And so good to have you here, Prof, as you join us on this conversation. We would want to get into very quickly into the controversy about your comments because we've lost a lot of time. Just tell us about why you had to make that comment that Tinubu, Atiku may not necessarily be the best for Nigeria as we head to the 2023 elections.
Well, it's true. I think this country has been going through a lot of debates, discussions, and so on about its problems, past and present, and its expectations for the future. I think this has been going on for a long time, especially for those of us that have been graced by God's time to be 60, 70, 80 years old. We have seen a lot in the country. We have seen efforts about the country's political, social, and economic development over 7 decades now. So I belong to that experience of people who have seen Nigeria in the last 7 decades. And definitely in being an observer, not just a lazy observer, but a keen observer of events in the country. We also have history of leadership, different types of leadership that we have had since our independence in 1960. And I'm happy to say that in 1960, I was a student at the University of Ibadan, University College Ibadan at that time. And we have seen our first generation leaders, Azikiwe, Balewa, Awolowo, Rodona, and others, who have struggled to lead the country, first lead it to independence in 1960, and post-independence after 1960, to as far as 1966, when the military struck and terminated the government we inherited from Britain, the federal system of government that we inherited. And from there on, things didn't go as smoothly as we all wished, and ups and downs and so on, including the Civil War and the rest of it, and still kept hoping that Nigeria would find that class of leaders that would face the challenges of the nation and towards development in modern nations or within modern nations. So I think this is really the crux of the matter. If you look at me in terms of that comment, you should look at me in that context. I've seen leadership in Nigeria for the last 70 years. And I can categorize as a former teacher. I can score the various types of leadership that we experience in this country. And so it could be within my objective rights to at any time make a comment, either in terms of quality of past leadership or current leadership, or the kind of expectations I have, and hopefully we have collectively for the future. And this is why I looked at Nigeria as a broken down vehicle, for example. and a broken down vehicle which you cannot replace. In this case, metaphorically, you cannot replace Nigeria with another Nigeria. You can only repair the wrongs in Nigeria, like the mechanic will repair the wrongs in a broken down vehicle. And this is why I said that given my history and given my experiences in the political history of this country, I became convinced that the mechanics that have been put forward by the political process that we have experienced this last few years, so especially in the recent months, that eventually threw up the kind of mechanics that are expected to repair Nigeria. And this is why I took exception and said that these are not the best mechanics to repair the faults in the Nigerian failed vehicle or failed state. And it happens that I'm also making this with all humility that out of 200 million mechanics that we have, it's my conviction that these are not the best mechanics for the time being.
For still insisting on that. But some Nigerians will read meanings into your position as being a revolt against the political system that we currently are practicing. And we've seen issues of vote buying, money politics, and all of that. What do you have to say about that?
Sorry, could you be clear? I couldn't pick you on this. Go ahead and repeat what you are trying for me to hear.
I just said some Nigerians will read meanings into your position as being a revolt against the Nigerian political system, especially in the light of money politics that has now led to vote buying and all of that. Is it a vote of no confidence on the Nigerian political system?
Yes, I've always been on the side of, if you like, you call it revolt, you may as well call it revolt. I am not a fan of the presidential system of government. And this is an opinion I've held for very many years together with my friends. Some of them are late, like my classmate and very close friend, Dr. Ibrahim Tahir and so on. We believed right from the beginning of the introduction of the presidential system that we have adopted a wrong system of government that does not fit the Nigerian situation or the Nigerian environment or the Nigerian level of political development. We abandoned something that we haven't quite fully tried, but it was working for us. The parliamentary system of government, which we experimented with, or which we started with in 1960 until 1966, when it was overthrown. And we thought that without giving us an opportunity to even debate the pros and cons of keeping parliamentary system vis-a-vis the dreams of some people who thought that we should borrow presidential system either from France or from America and so on. We are not given the opportunity to even discuss the pros and cons. We are just asked to go and pick a system, a presidential system, and it appears that the American presidential system is what was eventually brought. And to my mind, for so many years we have experimented with the presidential system. It has not worked well for Nigeria. It has not worked for Nigeria. And it's not fair to even say that when you compare with the 6 years or 5 years we had from 1960 to 1966, Nigeria made a lot more progress between 1960 and 1966 than it has made under the presidential system of government that we starting with Shagari, and eventually for the last 20 years we have been trying trial and error and so on. But I'm sure I've heard you discussing whether it is failure of judiciary, whether it is the failure of the executive branch. It is just the failure of the system that we have brought in, and the system does not fit our situation.
Okay, a failure of the system. But isn't it?
I'm not a fan of presidential system of government that we are operating now.
Isn't it because the presidential system of government through the executive presidency actually aligned with the military concept of a strong man at the center to give orders because of the Nigerian nature, the nature of Nigerians not wanting to follow procedures easily? That's why the military insisted that we should have the presidential or executive presidential system kind of government.
Then why are we crying about restructuring? When you hear people cry now about restructuring, they want true federalism. They want all sorts of true this, true that, true that, true that. We have moved away from basic elements of good federal system of government, regional blocks that were working constitutionally, socially, and economically. The northern region, the eastern region, the western region, and so on, they were working. And each region has its own constitution. And this is what now we are asking for. We want to decentralization of authority from the federal system of government, which sounds like a unitary system of government. In fact, from 1966, we had nothing other than unitary system of government, because when Ironsi came, he abolished the regions and introduced provinces, provincial system of government. And this is the beginning, to my mind, of centralized system of government in Nigeria under the first military coup. And this is what almost translated into the presidential system we borrowed from the United States. And even in the United States, if you look at how their states are operating, obviously there is a lot of independence of decisions, of legislation, and so on in the states vis-a-vis the federal government, and so on. So I don't know when people are talking about restructuring. I don't know what they are trying to talk about, whether they want more states, whether they want more local governments. They want more divisions in the Nigerian states. And we are almost at the point of saying that each tribe or each linguistic group or each ethnic group should have its own state or something like that. And looking at it overall, we made a mistake in moving away from federal system of government, which we could have improved a lot. Because when we inherited 4 regions, or 3 regions, no, 4, North, East, and West, in 1963, under Balewa government, working closely with Chief Awolowo of Western Nigeria, a Midwest region was created, and it was functioning very, very well indeed. And I don't see why that should not have continued. And perhaps we would have avoided all the things that we have witnessed since 1966 to date.
All right. I'll just ask you to hold on now while we go on a short break, and when we come back, we'll continue the conversation with you, Professor Ango Abdullahi. Stay with us. Welcome back to the Arise interview. I'm Sumner Sambo, and my guest is still Professor Ango Abdullahi, the convener of the Northern Elders Forum. And so good to still have you with us, Professor Ango Abdullahi. Now, is a return to the parliamentary system of government one of the key solutions to the major problems we are facing in the country?
The abandonment of the parliamentary system. Is that what you're asking? Sorry, it's not clear.
If we go back to it, will it help resolve all the problems you're facing in the country?
Oh yes, I mean certainly we tried it for only 5 years, and we condemned it after using it for 5 years. Now we have used parliamentary system for almost 20, 24 years, 25 years, and things are worse than what they were between 1960 and 1966. They are worse.
To the main reason why we have you on this interview, you have said that the likes of Rabiu Musa Kwankwaso and of the NMPP and Peter Obi of the Labour Party are inspiring some hope, and Nigerians should look towards there. Why did you make these suggestions?
I didn't make that suggestion. It is you that is making them now. What I said is that we had 18 presidential aspirants from 18 different political parties. And I made the observation that the ones that have been shown to us so far are not likely to be the mechanics that will fix Nigeria. And this perhaps might be the reason why some minds and thoughts move to other possibilities. And the other possibilities must be around the remaining 14 or 15 presidential aspirants, which included, I just mentioned a few examples. I said there are still some people out there in the field. There is, I mentioned, of course, I mentioned Konkoso, I mentioned Peter Obi, and so on. These are new hands compared to the ones that I thought I had reservations of. And there are others in other parties that which I don't even know. So Nigerians still have an opportunity to search and see whether it is possible based on what we have in terms of antecedents, of history, of the individuals that have offered themselves for various services and so on. And also, I mentioned, I think in my comments, there was even a technocrat in the team that was trying to, offer themselves for election. And there was Muhammad Hatuddin, for example, a very competent economist who knows this country very well. He was not only an economist, he was a successful banker and so on. So why can't we try people from outside the main stream of politics in the country? The mainstream politics or politicians have not solved the problem, and they are not likely to solve the problem in the present system. Perhaps if we change the system, we might work. But if we don't change the system, perhaps then within the system, you should expand a little bit and search a little wider afield and see whether we will not find good people who will come and manage the affairs of the country. And this is the crux of the matter. How is Nigeria managed? Oh, Nigerians are happy, and Nigeria is developing in all directions and can find itself in Committee of Nations and so on, just within few years. We have examples of very many countries that are only much younger than Nigeria, but they are making a lot of headway, for example. Take, for example, Rwanda. Rwanda had experienced terrible, horrific genocides. And within 25 years, because of good leadership, Rwanda now is an example to point at in Africa. Today, the whole of Africa The pointer is towards Kagame, Paul Kagame, good leadership. So this is really the crux of the matter. If you are talking about our problems will never be solved until we have good leaders put in places of leadership that will make this country move forward.
Okay. And Professor Ango Abdullahi, should we say that this is the collective view of the Northern Elders Forum? Or if it is the view of Ango Abdullahi as an individual, won't it incur the wrath of your members in the Northern Elders Forum?
No. This is Ango Abdullahi, pure and simple. And this is Ango Abdullahi, pure and simple, expressing his views.
And
as a Nigerian citizen, and also as a member of the Northern Elders Forum. Members of Northern Elders Forum are always free to express their views, which may be sometimes outside the mainstream direction which the Northern Elders Forum is going.
Okay, so good to know that.
So this is Ango Abdullah's views.
Yes, I mean, it has become very controversial, just like it happened when there was the issue of a consensus northern candidate in the PDP. We want you to tell us how that process eventually led to the way it ended, with a lot of controversies, and everything ended on your head. You were accused of not reaching out to several members of the Northern Elders Forum before concluding on Bukola Saraki and Bala Mohammed as the two consensus candidates from the North who should meet together and bring one person in the PDP.
Yeah, well, I think there again, when I eventually signed the document that led us to announce that two candidates have tied in the kind of survey that we have made, because we have made a survey on our own, or on my own. But the people that we surveyed included some members of the Northern Elders Forum. The only thing we did not do is to spell out the 36 names that we interviewed on the quality or otherwise of the candidates that are offering themselves for elections. And when I signed the report after collation of the results, I signed as Professor Ango Abdullahi. I did not sign as chairman or convener of the Northern Elders Forum. And we made it very clear to the candidates, because we didn't invite them, they came to us. They said they wanted a consensus from northern states to prepare for the contest at the national level, which we thought was a good thing. In the spirit of the Northern Elders Forum direction, we felt that that was a good thing for interested candidates from the North to put themselves together and work towards a consensus. They offered it themselves. And they said after they have gone around, they will come back to us and tell us that they have decided on one person. And this is something they have not been able to do. After they have finished going on, after they have finished their discussion, they found themselves unable to arrive at one person from among the four. And this is what led to our survey. We wanted to leave it at that point, but they still thought that we should help. And this is why we said, since they were the ones who went round, and we haven't gone round, we decided to put out these questionnaires to some very senior elders in the 3 zones where these contenders came from. And this is what led to the emergence of a tie between two, Bukola and Bala Mohammed. And when this tie was arrived at, we handed it over to them. They could do whatever they wanted. They could decide on one, or they should allow the two to go and decide on one, and so on. But we refused to point at any one person and say that this is the person, because we thought they said they would do it themselves, and we allowed them to do it themselves. They didn't do it, so they should go to the primaries, and this is how they ended up in the primaries.
Of time left, but before we round off this conversation, Atiku Abubakar did not subject or submit himself to this consensus candidacy search, but he has now emerged. And with your view now,
no.
Wouldn't he accuse you of standing against him personally, or since you lead the Northern Elders Forum, wouldn't it look like the Northern Elders are not with Atiku Abubakar?
No, it's only Ango Abdullahi expressing his views. There are quite a number of senior members of the Northern Elders Forum that attended the declaration, the ceremony in which Atiku declared for president in Abuja or in some other places. So we reached the point where members of the Northern Elders Forum would incline to candidates differently. And it was clear that there were some who were inclined to Bukola, some were inclined to Karambauchi, some were inclined to Atiku Abubakar, even though Atiku Abubakar was not part of the consensus arrangement, because he did not join the consensus. They approached him to be part of the consensus. He declined. He said he will go it alone. And that's how they ended up four, and he ended up alone, contesting alone.
As we try to round off this conversation, I would just want you to assure Nigerians on what needs to be done to ensure that there's no post-election violence, considering that we have a northerner in the person of an Hausa Fulani on the ticket, we have a Yoruba person in the person of Bola Tinubu on the ticket, an Igbo person in the person of Peter Obi on the ticket of all these major political parties. How do we ensure that there's no post-election violence because of tribalism and ethnicity like usually happens in the past, or even religion?
Well, this question should be directed to all Nigerians, not to the chairman of the convener of the Northern Elders Forum alone. And I'm sure you must be up to date in terms of what is coming from the stable of other elders. For example, the stable of Pandef, or the stable of Ohanaze, or the stable of Afenefere, and so on. You saw, I'm sure you are up to date in terms of what is coming from their own stable. And from what we read at this end, there are even places where they said that Northerners should not offer themselves to campaign, and so on. So I hope this kind of question should be directed to as many leaderships that you can find as possible. I don't see why there should be violence in an election, so long as the election is conducted freely and fairly, and as long as figures are very clear in terms of who wins the election and so on. Okay. The only thing that might worry you is perhaps it looks like there is a disturbance somewhere. Can I continue or stop?
All right. Just conclude very quickly before we end the show.
Yes. All right. Well, I'm hoping that this is going to be a very peaceful election. And we have been assured by the umpires of the election, INEC, that everything is being worked out in such a way that the election will be conducted very well, freely, fairly, and then in that case there should be no reason for one to expect or to wish or to hope that
all right.
there will be violence for whatever reason.
I'm afraid that's the much time that we have, but we must thank you immensely, Professor Ango Abdullahi, for joining us to take a look at the critical issues in nation building, sharing your experience with us, and we do wish you well. So good to see you once again, Prof. Ango Abdullahi was a former University Don, former Vice Chancellor of the Ahmadu Bello University, Zaria. Well, that's how it's been for this edition of the Arise interview. Do join us again tomorrow. From me and the entire team here in Abuja, goodbye and thank you for watching. I'm Sumner Sambo.